Dave on hold.
Roger that. Yeah, did you mention to him not to do that in the future? That's because that's probably what it was.
I didn't think of it initially. I didn't. I
should have.
Yeah, I didn't think of it, and it was after the show that it came to mind. I was like, oh, I wonder if he had several browsers open and connected and all that mess.
Yeah, he probably did. And there's nothing you can do about that. You're dead in the water.
Yeah, I started to play a backup segment, and then yeah, he got back, and I hit the delay on it, and so it probably sounded a little choppy and crazy, but it's hard for me to drive the bus and diagnose what's going on with him, and
it's impossible. Don't worry about it. I went ahead and on the podcast and pulled it all out anyway, so nobody saw it. Nobody heard it.
All right. That and it's not my bus to drive.
Di, thanks, Mom, for the hat. Digging the hat. The cool Stetson. Susie, Tom Sherman, like the hat. Thanks, bud. Susie, what's going on? Martin. Dave on hold. Southern Cal, greetings. Well, you're all out of jail. Tell you what.
Yeah, I'm back on Facebook, too.
Oh, good for you. You were out 30 days, huh?
Oh, man, a good 30 days. It was like the most interesting 30 days I was gone. I got so many people messaging me like, I wish you were not in Facebook jail right now. You'd be sharing some of the craziest stuff. I'm like, well,
yeah.
Follow me on Instagram.
Welcome back, Facebooks. Glad to have you. Tell you what. That Florida trip was bomb. That place was amazing.
The plane looked nice.
Yeah, yeah. Shh. Need to bring that lighting down in here. I'll fix that in a bit. Mark, welcome home. Thanks, bud. Appreciate it. I will be recording, so let me know that 30 cue, okay?
All right.
Immokalee, Florida, the middle of BF nowhere. Thousands of people out there. It was incredible. It's fun to see. Had the Hueys doing some demonstrations. Would come right over the tops of our heads. You ever see the movie War Dogs?
No, but I've seen Hueys before.
And when the Hueys come right over your head, I was holding up the phone playing. You had to play Fortunate Son when the Hueys came rolling above.
Sure. Here we go.
Lee Michaels, what's going?
30.
30?
This is Armed American Radio's Daily Defense.
Armed American Radio's Daily Defense. Because they don't want me to, that's why I do it.
Presented by X Insurance. X Insurance. From the gunbroker.com studios on the Crossbreed Holsters Platinum microphone.
They're never going to stop us here.
It's 2021, and we're in a new decade. Here is your host, the loudest conservative voice in America fighting the enemies of freedom, Mark Walters.
Indeed, welcome inside Armed American Radio's Daily Defense, gunbroker.com studios on the Crossbreed Holsters Platinum microphone. You are now able to see us back on Facebook live stream. We're out of jail over there for whatever reason. No big deal. We're back. We didn't raise a ruckus. We just said, okay, we'll be back. YouTube, same thing. Make sure to like and share the post if you're watching us on the live streams. I appreciate it very much. If you're listening on any of the dozens of radio stations across the country, welcome in. What a week it's been, presented by X Insurance, because we were down in Immokalee, Florida, in the middle of nowhere with thousands of enthusiasts at an event that was just incredible. I can tell you this now, we're working on putting on 2 of those events for you on both sides of the country, one on the East Coast, one on the West Coast, a year. It's a lot of logistics involved. This was a visual and a test for us, which is why we were there. And as time goes by, you're going to love what I'm able to tell you. But X Insurance, I want to thank them just profusely for everything that they did, making it all possible down in Immokalee for those 5 days in Naples, actually, because there isn't a whole lot in Immokalee except a road in and a road out and an empty jail and the Force Center trademark range where we were at. It was an awful lot of fun. But we are now back inside the ATL, Armed American Radio, gunbroker.com studios on this platinum crossbreed microphone. All of it brought to you by X Insurance. Let's go right to my first guest and only guest, my mom's favorite, and one of mine too, Dave Workman. How the heck are you, Dave? Welcome back, man.
Well, we nearly didn't make it, did we?
Boy, I'll tell you what. Let me just
what a roller coaster!
It was, and I want to tell listeners that we tried to bring Dave in. It was just really hard to do, and I need an hour with Mr. Workman when he comes on the program. And trying to work Dave, trying to get you in slots just doesn't work. Give me the hour or give me nothing, right? Give me Liberty or give me Dave. It's one of the two things. So
if I don't see that on a bumper sticker, I'm writing you out of my will.
I'm going to make a note here to get that over to the Patent and Trademark Office. We want to patent that. Give me Liberty or give me Dave, or give me Liberty and give me Dave. So welcome, Dave. It's great to have you. A lot has happened since I was down at that Force Institute. Just a lot of current events going on. I've been following as best I could some of the stories that you've been writing, and I want to take you to a bunch of them. In particular, I want to take you back down to the 20th, which is going back now a week. But nonetheless, you penned a column for Liberty Park Press. Forbes, you were talking about how the gun industry analyst sees significant gun control action. I want to talk with you about that and then put into play the dynamic that happened in the U.S. Senate with McConnell apparently outmaneuvering that idiot Chuck Schumer. And the reason I say that is because it could change things, and I want to get your opinion. First, what did Forbes, what was the analyst? Tell us about what was happening there.
Well, I can't tell you the whole thing. I mean,
as much as you can remember. I know I'm going back a week, and a lot. In today's day and age, that's a while back. But do you want me to paraphrase some of the comments?
Well, yeah, it is. What?
Did you want me to paraphrase some of the column? I can do that.
Well, yeah, I thought I lost you there, Mark. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you just fine, brother.
Oh, okay.
So let's paraphrase just a little bit.
So let's backtrack and let's go back there.
All right.
We got Forbes, the gun industry analyst. He's looking at a significant gun control action, and I wrote that based on really a Forbes story and some of the things that I knew, the inside stuff. Joe Biden has made absolutely no secret at all about his plans for gun owners in the United States. And when Forbes came out with that, I thought, well, that's interesting. Let me read the story. And bingo, they were dead on, essentially saying what I've been saying for the last 6 or 7 months. And I think Biden he's biding his time when he intends to drop some of this stuff. And I was talking to Alan Gottlieb, your friend and mine, this morning about when Biden might drop the bomb on gun control stuff. And he's thinking maybe on a Friday, maybe this Friday, maybe next Friday, which would give him a weekend without the firearms owners in the country being able to adequately respond. And there's a lot of logic in that. When typically and politically, history tells us that when somebody in political power wants to drop an egg bomb on the public, they wait until Friday afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that gives us all Friday night to get drunk and try to get over it. I don't understand their reasoning, but it makes sense.
Let me when you look at because that's the media, they're great at doing that. The White House will drop bombs like that on Fridays to avoid the press coverage and so forth. That's pretty much standard, and I wouldn't put that past any Democrat, particularly Biden at this stage of the game, to start dropping some stuff over the weekend. And Alan knows what he's talking about, so we'll watch these things unfold. He has 40 years of history there. But we had an issue, which I thought was fascinating, where it appears that McConnell may have outmaneuvered Schumer regarding the filibuster because apparently Schumer wanted to dust the filibuster. He could have done anything he wanted. Yeah. And McConnell outmaneuvered him. There are not enough votes. He can't do it, which now makes McConnell, you can listen to all the details of how and why on some of the other radio programs. We won't go into details. I'm asking you to trust me on this. McConnell has outmaneuvered Schumer, and that's a beautiful thing. That makes McConnell one of two things: either the single most powerful minority leader in the history of the Senate, or still the leader, because Schumer's basically going to have to come to McConnell and beg him for anything that he wants. So does that change the dynamic in play with anything that will come out of the House? Because we know they're going to put whatever they want out of the House. When it gets to the Senate, though, with that new maneuvering, the only thing they have left is budget reconciliation. And for listeners, what that means is they can use budget reconciliation just like they did with Obamacare, but only if it's a tax item or a financial item. Gun control is neither. So could we be on firm footing here, Dave?
No, I don't think so. And I tell you, one thing I learned a long time ago was that never count on something happening tomorrow when today is on shaky ground.
Yeah.
And we are on shaky ground. We've got politicians in the states, Washington, Oregon, Virginia, Texas, Florida. They're going after guns, and Biden is launching what I called yesterday in print a full frontal attack on the firearms industry by going after the Protection of Lawful Commerce in Firearms Act. I don't think that we should be too comfortable right now.
Hopeful.
This is not the time to let down our guard. This is not the time for gun owners to get lethargic, as they are famous for doing, and figuring, hey, we'll let the NRA do this. We'll let Alan Gottlieb do that. I'm going to watch TV. No. You better be on your toes, and you better be at the top of your game, because the current administration is quite possibly the most anti-gun administration that has ever been seated in Washington, D.C., and that's saying a lot, because we've been through Barack Obama. We went through Bill Clinton. And frankly, this guy outshines them all in terms of wanting to ratchet down on your gun rights, and he's always been. He even brags about how he used to be the leader in the Senate on gun control issues. Whether he was or not, he took the credit for that, and he hasn't changed his spots at all. So don't let your guard down, because the fight is, as Wyatt Earp said, the fight's commenced. To get to fighting or get away.
That's exactly what he told Ike Clanton. Those are actual words spoken by Wyatt Earp on October 26th, 1881 at the gunfight at the OK Corral. That is exactly what Wyatt Earp said when an unarmed Ike Clanton grabbed his leg. And we're getting ready to take a break, so we'll close on that very cool story from Tombstone. And then I want to go to that column that you wrote, because I love the way it's written. It's titled Biden's Gun Control Scheme, Sneak Attack or Full Frontal Assault. If you want to follow along with us, if you're at a desk, not if you're driving, please, you can see that by Dave Workman at Liberty Park Press, published yesterday, the 26th, if you want to follow along with us. But that is exactly what Wyatt Earp said. He kicked Ike Clanton off of him with his boot and said, Ike, the fight's commenced. Get to fighting or get away. True story, October 26th, 1881. That's pretty much where we are today. More prophetic words from Dave Workman when we come back. Don't go away. All right, so Facebook listeners, you get a funny story. Greg, you got to read there with me?
Yep.
Let me take viewers back into the studio with me. So I'll tell you a funny story. Greg, I hooked up all of my equipment inside the X office in Naples yesterday, or day before yesterday, on Tuesday. And was the first time I'd used that equipment with the current brand new MacBook laptop that I have. No big deal. It's just USB-C connections instead of straight USB connections and a couple other things. But we have all the proper equipment. But I could not hear, when we did the network test earlier in the day with Jim, he could hear me fine, but I couldn't hear him. Every single connection was solid. We had used the board, obviously, for 2 days previous, but that was for taping live. That wasn't for connecting into the network. And I could only hear him if I moved my headphones over to the Mac, which was a doable workaround, but I had other people on the mic with me, and I had guests call in, and that being the case, they wouldn't be able to hear you at the network or anything else. And as it turns out, I wound up having to get some tech support on the phone because I could not understand the connections, could not figure out why I was not able to get that sound. Well, Greg, have you ever made a call to tech support and talked to him for 2 hours and then realized that maybe your television wasn't plugged in or something?
No, I haven't.
I did once. This was worse. This was worse. Because I use an audio aggregator that captures a number of devices in the actual Armed American Radio studio where we are today, the settings on the computers that run those devices, while they look identical, aren't. The fix was simply because I was going direct USB to the computer, and the computer that I was using didn't have the aggregate device, was simply to turn the slider up so I could hear the USB. That's all I had to do was turn it up. So I got to tell you, the guy was very nice about it, and he says, he says, I think I might know what the problem is. He says, Apple has a workaround for your problem. He says, I need you to go back into preferences. I need you to click out of this, click that, and then click it again. There you go. Now turn your slider up. In other words, he was trying to make me feel good by making it sound like it was an Apple fix by going in and fixing this and fixing that and then turning the slider up. When all I needed to do was turn the slider up, and he was too nice to tell me I was an idiot. This upcoming segment of Armed American Radio is being sponsored by GunBroker.com, the world's largest online marketplace to buy and sell firearms, ammo, and related accessories. That's GunBroker.com. Welcome back to the show. Indeed, welcome back inside Armed American Radio's Daily Defense, the GunBroker.com studios on this Crossbreed Holsters Platinum microphone. All of it being presented to you today by X Insurance. If you haven't gotten a quote yet, what are you waiting for? Literally taking the firearms community by storm. And I mean that, literally. Other people are dropping what they have when they find out what they have isn't what they think they have, and they're moving to X to get what they thought they had. Does all that make sense? It's real simple. Xinsurance.com. Click on concealed carry or law enforcement or whatever else you want. They've got it. They'll cover your homes, your commercial business, your commercial autos. They'll cover your freedom. The CEO was on the program with me just this week a couple times. So please do yourself a solid and get real insurance when your life is on the line, your freedom's on the line. You want to make sure you got the best. All this is presented to you by X. Dave, here's some really good advice. Those of you who are watching the live stream, let me give my listeners the same advice that I gave them, and that is the viewers. Let me give you this. If something isn't working, plug it in. If it's plugged in, turn it up. Those of you who are watching know what I'm talking about, but I had an interesting, let's say, equipment failure the other day, and all I had to do was turn the volume up. We'll leave it at that. I felt pretty dumb, and the guy working with me didn't want me to feel dumb, so he pretended that I wasn't so stupid, as I'm sure they're using me and the recording of that conversation. I don't even want to think about what they're doing with it. Dave Workman, welcome back, brother. How are you?
Well, I'm fine, and I'm sorry about your equipment failure the other day.
It wasn't a failure. All I had to do was turn the volume up. It was hilarious. It took me 2 hours to figure that out. But in my defense, because I was in a different I was in a different setup using different equipment that didn't have the same features. But nonetheless, it should have been figured out. Regardless of that, Dave, let's go back to your piece over here, because this is good. And it is a testament to where we are today. I really do believe where we're at. You nailed it here, as you always do. Sneak attack or full frontal assault. That is the million-dollar question, is it not? Because we really, we're anticipating one thing, but maybe we're going to get another. Go for it.
Well, I saw what the NRA wrote the other day about is Biden planning a sneak attack, and I thought, well, that's kind of silly. I mean, everybody knows what he's been talking about for the last year, and one of the values of being able to write not only for the Gun Mag but for Liberty Park Press is that it gives gun owners, it gives me a wider spread to reach gun owners across the country, and I picked that story up. Almost verbatim. I did a little bit of rewriting and stuck it over into the Gun Mag too, because we've got two really different reading audiences there. And I think it was important to alert everybody that, while the NRA may have a certain perspective on this, is Biden planning a sneak attack, maybe that's something to get their attention. I'm sitting here right at ground zero almost in the Pacific Northwest, the hub of Western gun control, and I'm saying to myself, no, this is not a sneak attack. This guy isn't being sneaky about anything. He's coming at us with everything he's got, and he's already said he would be doing that.
He put it on his website. It's in the Democrat platform.
Yeah.
We know that you have to take this man at his word. You're refusing to accept the situation if you don't take the man at his word. And boy, I tell you, those of you who don't, we'll be okay. You're not.
Yeah, and Mark, I want to take an opportunity here to let people know, you guys out there in reader land and in listener land, if you've got a comment to make, there is an opportunity. The comments section is always open at Liberty Park Press. All you got to do is scroll down past the clickbait ads and go in there and leave a comment. I like to think that my readers and your listeners are among the smartest gun owners in the United States. They take the time to read about this stuff to get a different perspective than they're going to get from the mainstream press. And it's important for you to share your thoughts. That's the way that we understand one another, and that we can maybe work together, and that gun owners can share their ideas from different parts of the country. Same deal with you. They tune in across the country to your radio program. You're not just a regional local guy broadcasting from mom's basement. You've got a hell of a reach, and I'm always surprised by some of the emails I get from people from places I never heard of. Hey, I heard you you're talking to Mark Walters, too. And I'm thinking, well, yeah, there's a guy that needs counseling, but
Hey, watch yourself, because my mom would agree with that. Let me tell you a very cool story about that, by the way, because it matters that what we do say, that what we do talk about is making a difference. And viewers and listeners, I know you understand this, but I want to reiterate the point. When I was at the Immokalee event over the weekend, one story in particular, and I had the gentleman on the line. I had him on the radio with me. He was fantastic. Forgive me for not remembering his name right now, but a lot was going on. But the individual walked up, and he was actually listening. He was listening to the show in Sarasota, and he said, "Hey, I'm going to go to that. It's not far from us. It's a couple 3 hours away. Let's go to that event down there." And they did. And he walked up to me to tell me that he was listening to the show on the way down, and he heard about it on the program. And what does he do? He actually shows up at the event. I mean, that when that happens, I love that, because people are stepping out and they're saying, you know what, I've got to make my voice heard, Dave. And they're doing it.
Well, yeah, and that's important. And I probably learned to appreciate my readers about 35, 40 years ago when I was writing for the old F&H News, Fishing and Hunting News. And every Friday before opening day of deer season, we used to run a story about where we'd all be hunting, the staff. So I'm way up in the mountains with a bunch of pals of mine, and I came off the top of a ridge, and here's this stranger walking down. He'd been talking to my buddies, I could tell him, and I'm walking up the road, and he walks up to me and says, "Are you Dave Workman?"
In the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. And so where are we going with this? He said, "Well, I read that you're going to be up here. I wanted to drive all the way up here to meet you." That guy drove 100 miles up into the middle of absolute nowhere just to shake my hands. And that was an amazing thing to me.
Well, your work speaks for itself. It speaks volumes. Let me go back to that Liberty Park Press piece again.
Yes.
With the final 30 seconds that we have. And I'm going to kind of segue into two things with you for the next two segments. Because you mentioned high-capacity magazine bans. You talk about, and I quote, "The woman didn't actually claim high-capacity magazines were used in the Iowa Vista murders, but she did argue high-capacity magazines have made more deadly many shootings, including those close to home in Seattle." And then she went on to talk about Spokane, Burlington, and other places in Washington. Same woman testified in favor of a separate gun control measure on Tuesday. There's a push in Washington State, yet again, right now today. It's live and breathing as we're here, speaking today. We'll talk with Dave about that because he's in Washington State. And then I'm going to blindside Dave with something really fun. What and who makes up the gun community? What is the gun community? I think you'll find this conversation interesting because I'm going to jump on this for days, weeks, and months ahead. We'll be back with Dave Workman on Armed American Radio right after this.
It's the Bill.
Are we on the clock?
We're close.
Had to jump up, get some
And
water there.
30.
Back to Armed American Radio's Daily Defense with Mark Walters.
Yes, you are back inside Armed American Radio's gunbroker.com studios here on the Daily Defense broadcast on the Crossbreed Holsters microphone. All of it brought to you by X Insurance, an AM Best A-rated carrier that will fight all the way to the mat for you and not give up. This is not third-party gimmicky membership stuff. This is insurance just like you have for your homes, your cars, your life, your health. In fact, you know what? They'll cover your home and your businesses. And they'll cover your occupation. Regardless of what you do, they will write a policy for you up to $10 million with no exclusions if that's what you want. Whatever fits your lifestyle. This is not a one-size-fits-all. X Insurance is the real deal. Support them. They have your back. We'll talk more about a few more sponsors when we come back at the next break. Dave Workman joins me from out in the beautiful Bellevue, Washington. Gorgeous offices out there at CCR KBA and the Second Amendment Foundation. Dave, how's the construction going on behind you? Is it quieted down somewhat?
And actually, when you were here last, you saw across the road that they were building the apartments. They now have 2 of those apartments occupied, and the rest of the apartments are under construction. But it's been quite a project over there watching this. And we're going to talk about this at some point, but I'll just say this. These guys are hardworking American citizens. They're earning their keep, and now we've got an administration that is trying to cancel out a lot of their jobs.
Oh, yeah, already has.
Yeah, I know. So anyway, talk to me about the story I did and where we're going with this, because
Washington.
That woman has testified in the past about how her niece was killed in Isla Vista, and every time she does that, I jump on that because high-capacity magazines were not used in that outrage. He used 10-round magazines that were California compliant. The kid that we're talking about, Elliot Rodger, passed 3 separate California background checks to purchase 3 handguns in that state. He went through 3 California waiting periods. He used California compliant magazines. And at the time of the Isla Vista shootings back in, I think it was 2014 or 15, California had a high-cap magazine ban. And all I'm saying is, gee, that worked, didn't it?
It's a joke. Look, I'm making funny faces at the camera because it's so stupid. Now, somewhere else I want to go with you, too, is Montana, if we can, if I have enough time.
Sure.
If not, I'll carry that conversation on. But, this is the same logic that we saw in Virginia. Let's go after 8 gun control bills that would have stopped none of the crimes we've used as examples to put gun control in place, both the Virginia Beach murder and Virginia Tech, both of which were carried out with individuals who passed background checks and used handguns. That were the whole thing is ridiculous, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to them, particularly when they have the Fourth Estate doing their bidding. That's the media, for those of you who might not know that. Now you've got all 3 levers of power. Yes, it's going to be a little bit tighter in the Senate, but mark my word, we still have 5 Republicans that want to go after Donald Trump after the fact, who we cannot trust. And I don't know about you, Dave Workman, but I don't want my freedom in the hands of Joe Manchin. Okay? And that apparently we're closer to that than we've ever been before. Let's move to Washington State, because what's happening in Washington State is a litmus test almost, it seems, for Democrats when they take power, everything seems to happen there. We're watching it play out. Now, you guys are fighting this battle anew again today. What is going on there? And listeners, what you're hearing Dave talk about is coming to you. Go ahead, Dave.
Well, yeah, you're right. If you blink, you're going to suddenly discover that what has happened in Olympia, Washington, is going to be happening in a capital city near you, and you're not going to like it. There is an effort in Olympia to ban so-called high-capacity magazines in this state. And it's really based on nothing but fear and a little bit of falsehood and false advertising. Like this lady that I mentioned, she has. I didn't name her. I know who she is. I'm just, I'm not going to name her. But and believe me, I feel in my heart a great deal of grief over the loss of her niece.
Of course,
a lovely young lady, and she had her whole life ahead of her, and this scumbag drove downtown, down toward where the university was, shot her and one of her sorority sisters, and then he just opened fire and he killed a young man who was, I think, working inside of a coffee shop or something down there, and he wounded 14 other people. There's no excuse for that sort of thing. But when they talk about this and then use this as an example of why high-capacity magazines should be banned, I have to sit back and just slap myself in the head and say, wait a minute, that's got nothing to do with the crime that you're talking about. But the anti-gun crowd is very disingenuous. And, for example, you mentioned Montana. Well, our good friend Gary Marvin over there, head of the Montana Shooting Sports Association, they got into name-calling with Gary here, and I picked up on that. Now, all Gary wants to do is pass a piece of legislation that would, I think, reform the gun laws there in Montana to allow constitutional carry and protect, more protection for open carry. And he also did an op-ed in the Missoulian, which is a newspaper in Missoula, Montana, suggesting that the Missoula City Council allow the teaching of a pretty simple home firearm safety course for kids in 1st to 3rd grades. One of those things like, it's called Be Safe. And all it really says is, if you go to a friend's house and there's a gun, don't touch it, stay away from it. Pretty much what the NRA teaches. Right. Well, what did the Moms Demand Action say about poor old Gary? They said he's advocating to have guns in the classrooms of 1st and 3rd graders. And I looked at that and I thought, that's a damn lie, and I'm going to correct it. And, I guess maybe that's my job in life, or at least in this stage of life. When I catch these people doing that sort of thing, I'm going to call them on it.
And it's not hard to do because they do it all the time. There's a lot of things going on in Montana. We're going to have Gary Marbut on the program, by the way. He's going to be invited on in the next couple of weeks. We needed to get back in the seat, get done traveling before we short up that schedule. We're going to invite him on the program and to talk about this. But you also have in Montana, you have a former vice president of Kimber who also penned a guest column, an op-ed, if you will, in the Missoulian. Being pro-gun also means being pro-responsibility. We must oppose HB 102, which is the Montana Constitutional Carry Bill. I converted my love of shooting into a 25-year career in the firearms industry. I helped build an iconic international gun company. I sold millions of guns. I've won awards. I've even been a finalist for the Firearms Industry Person of the Year, which is the industry's highest honor. It's an award that has also been bestowed on firearms royalty like Charlton Heston and Bill Ruger. I've got a long history with guns. But, here we go with that. And he goes on to make arguments against constitutional carry. What he forgets to tell you is criminals carry their guns everywhere anyway. None of it matters. And I'm going to quote Mossad Ayub. We'll get a comment from Dave Workman. And Mossad, and here's what he says.
No, I believe that constitutional carry should in fact be the law of the land. But having said that, I believe that concealed carry is the better option for the element of surprise. But having said that, constitutional carry should be the law of the land.
That's what Mossad has said on this program, just like that many times.
30.
Dave, take it away. You got 30 seconds. Close us out.
Well, you do a lousy Mossad Ayub impression, but I know the guy you're talking about. He's a good friend of mine. He's one of my readers, and this is one spot where we differ. Yeah, I support support concealed carry, and I like the idea of constitutional carry, and I think that is the way that we should go in this country. I don't need a permit to exercise a constitutional right.
Bingo. We're going to take that to the break. When we come back, I think this next conversation you'll find fascinating because I have no earthly idea. I might have an idea, but I may be way off base.
20.
But I'm really interested to see. I don't know how Dave is going to respond to my next question, and it's a good one. And it's a conversation that all of us need to be having going forward. We'll talk about it when we come back on Armed American Radio's Daily Defense with Dave Workman. Don't go away.
All right, we're close.
Roger that.
And 30.
The following segment of Armed American Radio is being brought to you by Defender Coffee. When you drink Defender Coffee, you're making a donation to a gun rights organization of your choice that protects and defends your freedoms. Welcome back to the show. Welcome back indeed. And in the essence of time today, I want to direct you to armedamericanradio.org. You can check out all of our sponsors. You can hear them during the break. Please, 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 at this time in American bizarro, upside-down world, support these people that support this show. Mike Lindell kicked off a Twitter as I was flying back yesterday, I found out. I mean, this is just insanity what's happening out there today. You've got a party that's trying to destroy 1,500 jobs in America that makes pillows because they don't like his political beliefs. It is just remarkable what's happening. Guess what? You know how you get back at them? You buy his product, and you use the AAR promo code to do it and show support on behalf of gun owners. That's how you do it, and I'm begging you to do it. I mean, I know times are if you got $28, buy the pillow. Use the promo code AAR. MyPillow.com, radio listener specials. Use AAR. Get the price. Support this man. It's just remarkable what's happening. He's been supporting the right to bear arms on this program for years. We've got to step behind him. We absolutely do. And it's mind-boggling to me. It really, truly is. Also, frontsight.com, we're going to be planning some really fun stuff with FrontSight. You support Dr. Ignatius Piazza, who's doing some really remarkable work behind the scenes. We'll hear more about that coming out, but let's just say he's involved in a lot, and you can support that. Also, it's free. It doesn't cost you anything here. Frontsight.com/Mark. Take advantage of the free certificate. Sign up for it. Get it. Give it away. Sell it. Don't use it. That right there doesn't cost you pennies. Supports Armed American Radio and helps us work together to keep this voice on the air and other voices out there. Please support these companies, all of them. And don't forget the rest of them in the essence of time, I'll defer that. I'll talk more about them tomorrow. But it is so vital and so important that we support all of our sponsors. All right, Dave Workman, do you want to, put an exclamation point on anything we spoke about before I ask you a really good, fresh question?
No, go ahead.
All right. We hear a lot of talk. I brought this up on the show the other day, and I'm certain that you did not hear it, so I'm going to kind of catch you by surprise here. But this is a conversation you and I would have sitting down over a bourbon at a GRPC. If I were to say to you, Dave, we're hearing a lot of talk and conversation out there now about the gun community. There's 8 million new gun owners. We need to welcome them with open arms into the gun community. So it really a two-pronged question. Because I have my idea of what the gun community is. I just spent 5 days in the gun community, number one. And number two, I can promise you, there are people who purchased firearms that I don't want anywhere near my family, my home, and would never invite them into my community simply because they bought a gun. So let's talk a little bit about what is the gun community? What makes it up to Dave Workman?
Well, first and foremost, it's a big tent, and we let anybody in. And unfortunately, all the 8 or 9 or maybe 10 million people who bought guns for the first time in their lives over the last 12 months, they have retained their Pollyanna politics. And they're comfortable with going through endless background checks or having to do this or that, jump through whatever hoop there is in order to have a firearm, because deep down inside of them, they didn't really want to buy a gun, but they felt they had to because they had to take care of themselves, and they were frightened, about things that were going on, whether it was riots or COVID or a combination of the above. And they bought that gun thinking, well, I'm going to have it. Maybe I just ought to have it, although I still support gun control. And that's fine. Those people, they fell back on the Second Amendment, probably don't even realize they fell back on the Second Amendment. And they still consider owning a firearm to be a government-regulated privilege. Okay, we separate that bunch out, say that maybe 10 to 15% or maybe 20%. Now we've got the rest of the people who suddenly discovered, hey, gee whiz, wait a minute. You mean all those gun control laws that I supported, now they're screwing me with them?
Now you're talking.
I don't know why I can't buy a gun and then walk out of the store on the same day. Gee, that's just terrible. It's like Humphrey Bogart and Claude Rains. I can't believe there's gambling going on at Rick's. And suddenly they I think discovered they went through an epiphany almost, where they found out that gee, gun owners aren't such bad guys after all, and we're all getting tromped on by this mentality that says American citizens can't be trusted with firearms.
Yeah.
And then you've got a handful of them, say another 20%, who bought guns and say, by God, I'm going to get into this. I love the shooting sports. And suddenly I've discovered that this is really neat, and I'm going to get a concealed carry license or a permit, and I'm going for the whole enchilada, and I'm never going to vote for a Democrat again. You've got that bunch. We are a diverse community. We've got people from every race, creed, color, in fact, national background. There are people whose ancestors came from Europe, who came from Africa, who came from Asia, whose ancestors were probably here to greet the pilgrims, and that's really what it's all about. I think that's what the firearms community is. We're not all alike. We didn't get all punched out of the same cookie cutter, but we do, I think, believe that when we want to have a firearm, when we need a firearm, we really ought to be able to get a firearm.
Yeah, and the basis for the answer to that question, and I ask you that question really for advice, because I don't have the answer to it yet. It's something I've been exploring over the last couple of months, okay? And it's going to become more important as we progress through the next couple of years, because what you've just done is you've just broken down, and those of you who can see it, I've written this down. I've taken some notes on what Dave just said, because you have certain types, of firearms owners. You have people, Bill Maher, for example. Bill Maher has made it very clear, and I respect him for it. I'm a gun owner, but I'll give it up as soon as everybody else gives it up. Is Bill Maher a part of the gun community, or is he just a gun owner? There's a difference, and I think we're going to have to break that stuff down. I think maybe we need a new term. I don't know what that new term is yet. I'm just opening this bag of tricks for discussion as we go down the road. There's Antifa members who might be law-abiding citizens that own guns. Am I to welcome them into the gun community? What is the gun community? And I ask that question sincerely, and I ask it honestly, and it's just a discussion that I want to have. And Dave, you just opened that up because you started with where that discussion has to go, and that is, let's define what those different levels of gun owners are. There are lots of gun owners out there. I've often said on the show for years, and I'm never going to change my tune simply because we got Biden in the White House. If you're a gun owner that loves guns, if you bought guns because you like guns, but you still vote for Biden, you're a Democrat that loves guns, good for you. But you're not a gun rights activist. You're just a Democrat who loves guns. That makes you fixable in my book at some point down the road. Dave, we could go down that hole all day long. In fact, we should for much longer than 1 hour. I love you to death. Thank you so much for being here today. Where can people find you? You got 15 seconds. Tell us where.
30.
Land, Liberty Park Press, thegunmag.com, Guns Magazine, the print edition, Northwest Sportsman, and Conservative Firing Line.
Duck, duck, go him, right? No more Google him.
Yeah.
Duck, duck, go him, or start page him, and find everything you need to know about Dave Workman. I'm Mark Walters, filling your prescription for freedom. Thank you to Dave Workman, the CCR, KBA, and the SAF. We're going to get up and do it again tomorrow because they don't want us to. Carry on, carry often, carry absolutely everywhere. Never leave your cave without your club. Enjoy the rest of your day. We'll see you on the radio.
You've just filled your prescription for freedom with Mark Walters, presented by X Insurance. X Insurance on the Armed American Radio Network.
Good stuff. Recording done. That's a legit question, dude. We're going to get some fascinating conversation out of them. I'm going to get some good columns out of that as we move down the road here. Because there is reason to my rhyme. Let me put it that way. There's reason, method to my madness. Hold on one second. Got Dave calling me. Hey, boss, if you don't need me, I'm good. We good to go?
Yeah, I'm good, man. If you're good.
Great. I'm going to take a quick call from Dave Workman. I'll stay online here for just a moment. Thank you for everything. We'll see you tomorrow.
All right, man.
That was Greg. Isn't he awesome, guys? I'll be right back. I've got a quick phone call, guys. Be right with you. Yeah, Dave, hold on a second. Let me pull that actual piece up, and I'll give you the exact name. All right. Interesting stuff today, huh? I'm going to be asking for your input on what is the gun community. Is a leftist gun grabber, Biden supporter part of my community? Part of your community? Would that person put on a Biden-Harris shirt and walk through an event that I was at this weekend? I don't think so. I don't think that person would do that. I ask these questions because we're going to be exploring this because there are new gun owners out there. Where do they fall in the spectrum? Is the guy who bought a gun a friend of yours just because he bought a gun and likes it when he pulls the trigger for the wrong people? Because he's got bigger issues than your guns and his guns. He's not voting guns like you are. It's not a single issue to that individual. It is here. It's not there. Maybe it's global warming. Maybe it's whatever it is. Maybe it's gay marriage. Maybe it's abortion. Whatever it is, it's a bigger deal. That's why they vote the way they vote. They vote gun control because they have bigger issues, but they're gun owners. How do we handle them? That's a quote-unquote loaded question, and it's going to be one we're going to explore deeply from all sides here soon because the gun industry, I believe, are you going to let the enemies infiltrate your ranks? Think about that. It's a fascinating question because I'm going to tell you something right now. Not me, not this kid. You're not a friend of mine if you're pulling the lever for the wrong people. I don't want to hear about your love for guns. Go fix your problems, then come talk to me. That's when I'll let you in my house. Until then, not going to happen. All right, so I'll leave it at that. I don't want to go back into Facebook jail just yet. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed the program today. Let me get down to some comments real quick. I think it's keeping the calling spread and coming back to us, says Carlos Stetson. Our pint dude, Justin, he's on a phone call. Yeah, Justin, sorry about that. It was muted because I was on a phone call. Brian, digging the hat. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Fastest hour in radio. Martin, you bring up a good question. We're going to explore that. Somebody, a liberal gun owner, trying to make changes in the party platform from within. That's good. That's what has to happen. That person belongs in my community. Or do they, as long as they continue to pull for the wrong side? These are questions that anger a lot of gun owners. Okay? Where do you fit in the spectrum? Look, just because somebody has something that I have doesn't mean I'm going to welcome them over to my home for dinner when everything about their lives flies in the face of my morals, my values, what I'm teaching my children. I don't like you. I don't care about you, and you're not welcome at my home. Oh, you have a gun? Well, come on in. None of that other crap matters. I don't think so. Interesting stuff. Interesting stuff. All right, guys, I got a lot of work to do today, as you can imagine, just getting back. We'll get the podcast up here for you shortly. And we will see you on the radio tomorrow. Thursday already, right? Thursday. Good heavens. Talk to you on the radio, guys. Thank you for being here.